Hello. Well, this is the interview with Herbert Midgley, the internet legend. I'm going to talk a little bit about my creative process and the films and art and music and writings and everything I do that's creative, the art, films, avant-garde things I make as well. So this is an opportunity for you to learn a little bit about my process, my thought process, my creative process, and hopefully this answers some questions that you may have or may not have. So one thing is like this: there are certain people in the world, certain people throughout time that have this need to create, to make things, to make something out of nothing, to create, and they see the world in a different way than the regular folks do, the non-creative folks. And in a lot of ways, I think everybody is basically creative. Is that a lot of times that creativity is just turned off at some point, and a lot of us try to keep that creativity going for our whole life. A lot of us worked hard to turn that creativity back on. I found in the last 15 years of connecting music and film and art and writing and acting together has made myself a lot more creative in other things. So when I need to write some music for a score for a film, or I need to write some classical music or whatever, my creative juices are just flowing. If I need to write a play, write a short film, write a screenplay, I have ideas that are connected together. When I go act, I am able to make it an interesting character, something that's not just reading lines and actually being in part and engaged in those activities. And so, if you're creative, most of the time you're not just creative in this one thing. Time and time again, you see folks that are visual artists, but are also musicians, and dancers that are also musicians, and writers that are actors or directors and things like that. So, to me, the arts combine together a great deal. And so, that's just my thought process. And for me, I really don't see too much of a difference between making something that's how to eat an apple and spending 2 years of my life making the Rise of the Robots. They're different vehicles. They're different. Making some avant-garde electronica music is really no different than writing a symphony, writing something that's really tonal based. And in a lot of ways, if you look at some of the artists, someone like let's say Picasso from the art world, for him to be able to do his cubism, he really needed to be able to paint like the masters. And if you look at his early work, I mean, he could paint incredible, and that's why he was able to take his cubisms and go out. And same thing with other composers that did this atonality. They could write, like Mozart or Wagner or Brahms, any of these, Beethoven. But they wanted it to grow, and that's one thing as a musician, as an artist, as someone that's creative. You don't want to get pigeonholed and trying to sound like Beethoven. Beethoven already did it. Mozart already did it. Bach already did it. If I make a film, I don't need to make a film that looks like George Lucas. He already made Star Wars. I have my own vision and my own ideas when I make a film. And so when I made The Rise of the Robots, it truly is, if you watch it, it truly is me, goofy in some ways, having social commentary. I think as time goes on, that film will probably be seen as, especially now. Right now, I'm recording this actually on Christmas Day in 2014. And you go out and in the malls, you go out and see people on Facebook. All of them are on their cell phones or iPads or laptops or whatever, and they have the whole family together, and they're all in their own cyber world, just sitting in a room together. And as time goes on, I think people are gonna look back at that film, kind of like they look back at some of these silent films and think, "Wow, this is very prophetic in a lot of ways." I'm not the first one that came up with that thought, of course, and I think one thing that I kind of got from Frank Zappa is that you question things, and you make fun of things, you ridicule things, and so that way you have an idea of understanding what's going on with what is in it, and you have to be able to defend and make arguments. And one thing that I do play oftentimes is the advocate for causes that are either you know, when I debate my friends or discuss things, I can, when I discuss things with them, I can look at another side and realize that there's not one answer to everything. There are two sides, and sometimes a lot more than that. There's a whole circle of things. And I think playing advocate for things, for ideas, makes you really defend on what you really truly believe, and as time goes on, your beliefs, your opinions, your creativity changes. When I'm 19, it's different than I am now. When I was 19, I couldn't grow a beard. I can grow a beard. So it's that kind of creativity that really drives me. And oftentimes, I think by my age, a lot of times folks would have stopped being creative, and in mine, I'm just continuing to constantly make something. The thought that I've made about 3,000 videos on YouTube in the last, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is insane. It's, just, who can do that? Who can make that much content? That's their own content, not copyrighted material, their own material. And there's some that have. There's probably a lot on YouTube that have, but most of the time when people have a ton of videos, they're, using some type of walkthrough from a video game or whatever else it is. But that creativity really is part of who I am, and being able to make things and create things and look at things differently. And a lot of times with art, a lot of times with the videos, a lot of times with the music I make, the writings I make writings I write, I realize that this is not really going to go anywhere. It's just testing out new ground. Much like bebop music, when it came out, no one, there were these great virtuoso players that were trying to stretch music to jazz to another level, and most of the audiences just didn't catch on to that. It doesn't make it invalid. It just makes it where just people just didn't like it and just didn't get it, couldn't dance to it. So they went on to the music, rock and roll that comes around, that they could understand and they could dance to. They could be acceptable. And there are a lot of times things that come out that are, aren't ready for prime time. And it takes a lot of years for people to kind of look back and say, well, this actually was really good. It's happened in literature. It's happened in film. It's happened in music. You can go through and read the rejection letters of all these great composers and these great pieces, and now they're masterworks. And same thing with films, the same thing with literature. And it's hard to look at right now and tell if something is really good. Only time will tell if any of the stuff I make is worthy of lasting. I think probably the biggest thing I've done is the robot film, The Rise of the Robots. Few of the electronic works, I don't know. I mean, am I avant-garde? I guess I am. Do I make art films? Yeah, I do, but so does a lot of other people. I think my films are different. I think one of my big advantages over others is that I'll take a simple point-and-shoot camera, or I'll take a high-def camera, I'll take a super, 4K camera or whatever. It doesn't matter. I can do something with whatever it is. I can take a webcam like I am right now and talk. So it just depends on what I'm trying to do, and something can be just as worthy on a little $30 camera as it could be on a $30,000 camera, maybe even better, maybe even work even better. I think a lot of folks are really uptight about wanting the best lights and the best cameras and this, that, and the other. And when it comes down to it, is it good or not? That's basically it. If you go look at something like I did, kind of a spoof of that Too Many Herbs video. Not everybody could just go out there and do that, especially it came out that day. And 4 hours later, I had something that I could put out there that I'm not going to say is good, but it's definitely a parody of a parody of a parody in a lot of ways. And not many people have the ability to go through and edit and shoot something and know about lighting and can see something and shoot it all themselves in their head and edit it and put it together. I mean, it is, but again, I've made 3,000 videos on YouTube. The reason why I can compose a movie score, in a week or two is because I've written so much music. I write music every single day. I can play guitar because I play it every single day. I write every single day. So it's those are the type of things you got to do. If you're, if you're a writer, you write. If you're a composer, you compose. If you're, a musician, you play. If you're an actor, you act. Those are the things that you just got to do. And are you creative or not? And that's really the question. And so, anyways, I would say to anybody listening to this in the future that's trying to understand what I've done with this YouTube channel is I was just questioning my own creativity, and a lot of ways these things are just very obvious. How to put gas in your car, or how to tie your shoes, or wear a suit, or sit down, or put a Santa hat on, or whatever video I came up with. There's a hint of something there. I'm not gonna say genius, but there's a hint of something that's interesting that made you think. Then I did my job as a creative person, and again, I don't know. I mean, after I'm gone, all these videos will be gone. Who knows? We're in new ground. I mean, a lot of the films that were around the turn of the century are just completely lost. Some of them have been found, rediscovered. A lot of records, most of the records ever made are, haven't been archived to CD, and those CDs are now kind of, if they haven't been archived to an MP3, will it live on? I don't know. The stuff that's worthy will live on. The stuff that's not won't. And think of all the great literature that's been lost. Think of all the great plays and symphonies and compositions that that maybe not even lost, or sitting in some library somewhere and nobody even knows about it. So it could be the same thing that 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 300 years from now, someone might discover what I did and actually think, oh, this is valid, or they look at it and this is not valid at all. And if you get fame in your own lifetime, great, I guess. I mean, it really doesn't matter. No one really creates stuff to be famous. I don't think anybody specifically does that. There might be a few, but for the most part, most people don't. I think we create because we have to. And if you're creating for a paycheck or for fame or whatever, it's not pure, it's not natural, it's not genuine. And an audience can spot someone who's genuine a mile away. And if you're genuine, audiences will follow you. If you're not genuine, the audiences won't follow you. Go listen to something like the Orange Space Glasses, or the Sonata I have done recently, this avant-garde thing, pieces of music. It's genuine. It's interesting. It's different. It's not tonal. Same thing with some of the art films I do. It's like, well, what is it? What is this person trying to say with this? And really, if I tell you, then it's not really effective. You need to make your own observations. And same thing with the larger works I've done, the symphony and the Rise of the Robots. I can't tell you what it is. You can look at it, and either you get it or you don't. And if it falls on you and you don't understand it, well, or don't like it, you're not wrong. It is this wasn't for you. Everything I create, thanks to YouTube, thanks to the internet, I have a way to distribute it. If I write a book, I can make it a Kindle book, make it where someone can buy it. Or if I don't want to do that, I can just put it on a web page and have you read it like a blog. Songs, make a music video, throw it on YouTube or whatever. SoundCloud, whatever. You have photography. There's so many places you can put your photos you have of various things that you do. You have this beautiful landscape picture or whatever kind of photography you have. You have a way that a lot of people can see it. And I really believe this with the internet. If it's good, if it's valid, you will get an audience. And if it's not, it just doesn't. Recently, I worked a week on this video. Thought it would be amazing. Took a long time to make it. Nothing. And something I spent a few hours on, or 2 minutes on, gets a lot more hits. So, you can't predict. You can work really hard on something. You can spend 2 years on something, and audiences don't really get it or understand it or like it. And you can spend, literally 20 seconds making something and another 2 or 3 minutes editing it, throwing it online, and it's, seen by, hundreds of thousands of people. So, anyways. Well, hopefully the interview will um, give you a little bit of insight of my creativity. And anyways, if you got through this whole thing, hopefully you learned something about my thought process, and I hope that you are creative, and hopefully you'll want to figure out some things for yourself. Um, Whatever your job is, I feel that you can be creative at whatever your vocation is. Um, you usually find a way to be very creative at it and get better at it as time goes on. And again, the reason why I can make films and music and write and act is just because I've done it a lot. Um, and just time makes you better at it, and tenacity, and the freedom to be able to go out there and not be restricted by your art, and being able to say what you want to say. And there aren't very many people that get a chance to do that. So I'm very fortunate that the way I look at life, and there's a place for me to show it and have the world potentially see it. And I know that I've done this before. I've written a song, shot a video of it, threw it on the internet, and 20 minutes later it's seen around the world. Amazing, amazing. We live in amazing times, and if you're watching this in the future, go out there and make some stuff. Be creative. Well, as I always end, rock and roll, everybody. Yeah.